Hello, it's Mrs. Gillum, and I'm the reading teacher at James Elementary and Trail Woods Elementary in the Kansas City Public School System. Today, I am here to share with you a good reader skill. Good readers focus on the character when they read. If you try to get to know the character in the story, you get more out of the story that the author is trying to tell you. So, good readers look at a character's traits on the outside, the ones you can see, and on the inside, the ones you can't see, the ones about the character's thoughts and words and the things that they do. Well, today we're going to look at the character traits inside the main character of the story. The story that I brought for you today is called Babushka's Doll. Now, this is a story about a little girl whose grandmother is from Russia. And the word babushka means grandmother in Russian. So the characters in the story are the grandmother and the little girl Natasha. Now we are focused on the little girl. This is Babushka's Doll by one of my favorite authors, Patricia Polacco. It wasn't that Natasha was a truly naughty child. She just never understood why she had to wait for things. Babushka, Natasha said, for in Russian, babushka means grandmother. Please stop doing the laundry and push me in the swing. My darlings, Babushka said, I have laundry first. Would you like to help me? No, said Natasha. I want to swing now. Here in the picture, we can see grandmother doing the laundry, and you can see Natasha saying no, she wants to swing right now. Aren't you finished yet? I want to go for a ride in the goat cart. My precious, Babushka said, I must hang up these clothes while the sun is shining. But the sun will be shining all day. I want to go now. Take me, said Natasha. So here is grandmother trying to get her work done, while Natasha tugs at her and demands that she come and do something now. Babushka went to feed the goats. Natasha followed. But I'm hungry too, Babushka. My stomach is making noises. I want to eat now. Don't be selfish, darling, said Babushka. These poor creatures need to be fed. They cannot fix their own lunch. There's Babushka. She's feeding the goats, feeding the animals, while Natasha holds her stomach because she's so hungry. Well, I'm going to stop right there at this point in the story, and I'm going to ask you, so far in the story, which trait is most like Natasha? Is she helpful? Is she helping her grandmother? Is she kind to her grandmother? Is she selfish? Or is she curious about what her grandmother is doing? What do you think? Do you think she is helpful, kind, selfish, or curious? Oh, well, why do you think that? What are her words or actions that are making you feel that she is whatever you picked off this list? I'll check back with you later on what you decided. Read a little more of this story. Now I am finished, said Babushka. Now we will have lunch. She took a little kettle down from a high shelf, and Natasha looked up where the kettle had been. "Is that your doll, Babushka?" she asked. "Yes, dear, it was my doll when I was a little girl like you." "Did you play with her all the time?" said Natasha. "No, dear, I only played with her once. Only once." Here in the picture, Natasha is pointing up at the shelf, and her and grandmother are looking at the doll, and grandmother has explained she only played with the doll one time. Can you imagine having a toy that you only played with one time? Well, Natasha's grandmother says she only played with the doll once. What happens next? "I have finished my soup now," said Natasha. "May I hold the little doll just for a while?" Babushka got the doll down from the high shelf. "Yes, it is just the right time for you to play with her," said Babushka. She handed the doll to Natasha. "I'm going to the store for groceries," she said. "You may play with the doll until I get back." And here's Babushka handing the doll over to Natasha. And Babushka is going to leave Natasha at home with the doll. And something is going to happen. As soon as the door closed behind Natasha's grandmother, something happened. The little doll began to move. She jumped to her feet and did a little dance. For a moment, Natasha was frightened, but then the doll called, "Come on, Tasha, let's go out and play." And there's the doll coming to life and asking Natasha to go out and play. Natasha and the doll ran and ran until Natasha could run no more. As soon as Natasha sat down to catch her breath, the doll said, "Get up, Tasha. You get up now. I want to play." And there they are, running and running until Natasha is so tired. "I'll swing you on the swing," Natasha said. "Whee!" the doll squealed. "Push harder. I want to go higher." Natasha pushed the doll higher and higher, but soon she grew tired. "Don't stop, Tasha," cried the doll. "Don't stop. I want you to swing me higher." And look at that. Natasha does not look very happy. She's pushing the doll as hard as she can, but the doll wants to go higher and higher. "I'll take you for a ride in the goat cart," Natasha said. "Oh, goody!" Tasha the doll chirped. "And don't you slow down. Keep going as long as I want. Do you hear me? As long as I want." What do you think of this doll who's bossing her around and demanding to do all these different things? Does that remind you of anyone? Soon Natasha couldn't lead the goat cart any longer. "I have to stop," said Natasha. "I need to rest." "Now I want to eat," said the doll. Poor Natasha was very tired, but she tried her best to make some lunch. There's Natasha trying to rest and the doll saying, "I want to eat right now." Look at Natasha's face. She does not look very happy at all. Babushka's doll spilled the tea. She sloshed the soup from her spoon, and she flung noodles all over her head. Then she pounded her fist in the mess and laughed and laughed. So now Babushka's doll is making a horrible mess, and poor Natasha is all alone to deal with it. Suddenly, she stopped laughing and started to scream, "My dress! Tasha, it's all dirty! I want you to wash it right now!" Natasha washed the little dress and hung it on the line. There's Natasha washing the little dress. Then she ironed it and put it on the doll. "You didn't do it right," said the doll. "My dress is all wrinkled." Natasha began to cry. "I'm just a little girl," she said between sobs. "I wish you were just a doll." There's the crying Natasha, wishing that doll would stop demanding so many things. "My darling girl," a voice cried out. "Why are you crying, my precious child?" "Babushka," sobbed Natasha. "Your little doll came to life and she was very naughty. All she wanted me to do was work. She never let me rest. She made me iron her dress and I don't even know how. I'm just a little girl." There, Babushka said. "You must have had a bad dream." There's Natasha crying in the corner, and the doll is flopped on the floor, and Babushka is trying to console her and make her feel better. "Maybe," said Natasha. Her grandmother smiled and held Natasha closer. "From now on, you can play with the little doll anytime you want." "No, thank you, Babushka," Natasha said. "Once is enough." So in the end, Natasha doesn't want to play with the doll anymore. Why do you think that? Why do you think she doesn't want to play with the doll? I'll check in on that thinking in just a minute. Babushka picked up the little doll and put her back on the high shelf. "It looks like you've had quite a day," she said softly to the doll. The little doll gave Babushka a wink and went back to just being a doll. And the end of this story says that Natasha turned out different after she played with the doll. There is grandmother winking at the doll and putting her back on the shelf. So I'll ask you again, what did you decide was her character trait at the beginning? Was Natasha helpful, kind, selfish, or was she curious? How many of you chose selfish, always demanding that Grandma do things for her when Grandma was trying to work? And when Grandma asked her to be a helper, she said no. She wasn't helpful. She wasn't kind. She wasn't curious. She was selfish. But after she played with the doll, did Natasha learn a lesson in this story? What did she learn from the doll? Did she learn how it feels to be treated so rudely and not to have help and have things demanded done for you? So, do you think Natasha will change? And will she be different? Will she change her personality trait? So how might she change? Do you think she might become a little more helpful? Do you think she might be a little more kind and a little less selfish? I'm not sure if the story said anything about curious, but as a reader, taking the time to get to know Natasha through the way that she talked to her grandmother and the things that she did in the story helped me understand that this book is trying to teach a lesson. So what lesson did you learn from this story? Is it better to be helpful and kind and patient, or selfish? I bet you're making the right choice right now. Well, I really appreciate you sharing this time with me today to read this book called Babushka's Doll by Patricia Polacco. And the next time you see me, I will share more skills about what good readers do to become better readers. See you next time. Bye.
Kindergarten is great at Kansas City Public Schools.
I know they have really good teachers. I know this is a great school.
They teach them stuff that I thought my kids would never be able to know at the age of 5.
Since deciding to send our kiddos to a neighborhood school, we've become even more of a part of our community.
Now is the time to enroll your future kindergartner for the new school year. Visit enrollkc.org today.
KCPS Homeroom. My name is Mrs. Pruitt and I am a reading interventionist in the district. Today we are going to be doing a phonics lesson with final E. So you may have heard of final E as a couple different things. Sometimes you hear it called magic E. Sometimes you hear E at the end. Sometimes you've heard it called maybe what's your name E. It has all kinds of names, but it all means the same thing. So final E has a special job that it does. If you look up here on my board, you will see that we have all of the vowels listed up here. So A, E, I, O, and U. When those vowels stand alone in a word, they make a short vowel sound, A, E, I, or But when we add final E, it changes the sound that these letters make. Today, that is what we are going to focus on. So if you look up here, I have some CVC words that just have a short vowel sound, and I'm going to show you what happens when we add final E. So our first word is cap. In cap, we have that A sound because it is the short vowel sound. But if we add final E to the end of this word, it now is going to make A say its name. So cap has now become a cape. Next we have not. In not, our vowel sound is the short sound ah, but if we add final E to the end, it will make O say its name, and this word now becomes note. We also have the word cub. Our short vowel sound for cub is and if we add final E, it's now going to make this sound say U, so our word becomes cube. Next we have the word kit. Our short vowel sound is I, but if we add final E to the end, it now becomes kite. And finally we have the word bit, and if we look at our vowel sound here, it is also I, but when we add final E to the end, it now becomes bite. So final E has a very special job in a CVC word. When it is added to the end, it changes our vowel sound from a short sound to a long sound, and the vowel in the middle is going to say its name. So I'm going to have you practice a few, and we're going to do it in a certain way. So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to think about how many sounds you hear in the word that I give you. Once you listen to how many sounds you hear, we're going to practice spelling that word. So we're going to start up here, and I'm just going to show you a practice with the word cape, how this is going to work. So if we have the word cape, you would listen to how many sounds you hear in cape. K, A, P. There are 3 sounds in the word cape. Now you're going to go back and match a letter to each sound that you hear. So K, C, A is the A sound, P is your other consonant, and then in order for this to say A, you would have to add an E to the end. So even though we only have 3 sounds, that word actually has 4 letters. C, A, P, E. So if you have a piece of paper and a pencil or a whiteboard handy, I'm going to tell you some words, and I want you to see if you can try the strategy to write some final E words. So our first final E word that we are going to write is name. You probably see that word a lot on your papers. But the word name has how many sounds? Try and figure it out on your own first, and then I will help you. So if we're going to segment out the word name, we would go n, a, m. It has 3 sounds. So now what I want you to do is take those sounds and try to write it down on your paper or your whiteboard. And listen for that first sound. So write the sound n that matches a, and then think about what you might need at the end of that word in order for it to say a. So don't forget to add that final E so that that long A in name can say his name. All right, let's try another one. Fame. Fame. Think about how many sounds you hear in the word fame. So let's do it together. A, Think of those sounds you hear. Now match your letter to F. So F, and then A is saying his name, and And then think about what you have to add to the end of that word in order for the word fame to have the long A sound. So now let's maybe try one that's a little more tricky. Think about the word shrine. Shrine has some extra sounds in there. Shrine. So let's segment it. Sh, I, n. Now this one has 4 sounds, but I want you to pay attention to what that vowel sound does. It says its name, so shrine. So let's segment that one out. Sh. That's your SH digraph. I, n. Shrine. So we should have SH, R, I, N, and think about what letter you're going to add at the end to make sure that that I says its name. So don't forget your final E. And we need to try one more. Let's see. Let's do the word swode. Now that's a nonsense word, but we still want to be able to hear all the sounds. So swode is your word. Try to segment it out on your own first to see if you know how many sounds. So S, W, O, D. You should have heard 4 sounds in that word. So let's segment it out. Write the letter that matches the letter that matches W, O, and D. So S, your W is W, O is your long O sound, and D. And don't forget to add final E at the end of that word so that your vowel O says its name. So this week, as you're learning about final E and you continue to practice this, use books that you have in your house or readings that your teacher gives you this week and see how many words you can find that have the final E sound. Also, try to write some final E words. You can make words up. You can try any word that you see or have your mom or dad sound out words for you and you practice writing them. Final E is really important as we do some more reading in 1st and 2nd grade, and you will see this a lot in some basic readers. If you find some words that have our short vowel sound, see what happens when you add E to the end and how it changes the name. So make sure that as you are reading and writing this week, you are practicing looking for final E and reading those words correctly. So today we learned about final E. Make sure that you look for this pattern in words that you see this week. Have a great week.
The desire to create lives within each of us. From Grammy-winning producers and musicians, to NBA stars, to Navy admirals and Medal of Honor recipients, to internationally renowned artists and beloved local muralists, Paseo graduates have been creating their own success, their own history, their own legacy since 1926. Now it's your time. Create your future at Paseo Academy of Fine and Performing Arts. Learn more at enrollkc.org/Paseo.
I love Southeast because of the culture, the band program, and restorative justice.
I love Southeast because of the academics, sports, and students.
I love Southeast because of the people, the energy, and the advanced classes.
It's not alike. I love Southeast because the students here at Southeast are full of potential and they believe in achieving anything. We are Southeast. Southeast. We stand shoulder to shoulder.
Join the Southeast family. Enroll today.
Hi everyone, this is Miss Lu, and today we're going to have Chinese for level 2 students. Okay, so today we're going to learn about 衣服, clothes. So like usual, we're going to do a quick review of last time. So last time we learned about colors, 颜色. So let's do a review together. First, together, 红色, 红色, the color red. 橙色, 橙色, color orange. 黄色, 黄色, the color yellow. And then 绿色, 绿色, the color green. 蓝色, 蓝色, blue. 紫色, 紫色, purple. Then we have 黑色, 黑色, the color black. And then 白色, 白色, the color white. And then we have 棕色, 棕色, which is brown. Okay, so today we're going to learn about clothes. And our goal today is I can describe what one wears. And today our focus will be a little bit higher level. So focus will be on level 2 Chinese, and then we're going to write some characters today. Okay, so like usual, you are going to need your notebook and a pencil to take notes. Okay, give you 10 seconds to get ready to learn. Okay, so first I would like to introduce the vocabulary that we're going to cover today. So here, first, read after me together. Let's go over the vocabulary. T-shirt. T-shirt. T-shirt means t-shirt. Okay, t-shirt. And to combine the things we learned about color from last time, 什么颜色的? So what color is this t-shirt? This is, together, 绿色的 t-shirt. 绿色的 t-shirt. So when you describe the color of the clothes, you will say the color first and then the clothes. Okay? 绿色的 t-shirt. Second vocabulary for today, 卫衣. 卫衣. And 什么颜色的? 什么颜色的? So what color of this 卫衣? This is 就是红色的卫衣. 红色的卫衣. So this is a red hoodie. 卫衣 hoodie. 这是裤子 裤子. So all kinds of pants, no matter it's jeans or shorts, they all can be called pants. All can be called 裤子 okay, as pants. 裤子 And 什么颜色的什么颜色的 And this is 就是黑色的裤子黑色的裤子 okay, 黑色的裤子这是裙子裙子 So all kinds of different dresses or skirts, they can be called 裙子裙子 And 什么颜色的什么颜色的 So what color is it? 这是蓝色的裙子蓝色的裙子 So this one is a blue dress 蓝色的裙子 And then the last word we're going to learn today is 鞋子鞋子鞋子 means shoes All kinds of shoes can be called 鞋子鞋子 Okay? And 这是什么颜色的什么颜色的这是白色的鞋子白色的鞋子 Okay? 白色的鞋子 a pair of white shoes Okay, let's go over the vocabulary. These are the 5 vocabulary we're going to learn today. We will take notes together later. So now let's focus on the pronunciation. Okay, together after me. T 恤 T 恤卫衣卫衣裙子裙子裤子裤子鞋子鞋子 And if you would like to add the color too, the color will come before the piece of the clothes. Okay, so for example, a green t-shirt would be 绿色的 T 恤这是红色的卫衣这是蓝色的裙子这是黑色的裤子这是白色的鞋子 Okay, so these are the vocabulary we're going to cover today. And now I would like you to do a activity on your notebook with me, okay? Which is called 画画 draw, okay? And I would like you to draw a picture of the piece of the cloth, the word I say. For example, I say T 恤 and then on your notebook you draw a simple t-shirt. Okay, so let's do a practice and see if you can remember this vocabulary. Okay, so get ready. The first one, I would like you to draw 裙子 裙子 So which one is 裙子 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 Are you done? So 裙子 is the dress, okay? 裙子 the dress. Do you get this one correct? 裙子 And then next one, I would like you to draw on your notebook 裤子裤子裤子 Okay, which one is 裤子裤子裤子 Ready? So the 裤子 is the pants, okay? 裤子裤子 pants. Do you get this one correct? And then we're going to do a final one. So I would like you to draw a 卫衣 on your notebook. 卫衣卫衣 So which one is 卫衣卫衣卫衣 Ready? So 卫衣 is the hoodie. Okay, so 卫衣卫衣 Do you get all the 3 correct? So these are the vocabulary we're going to learn today. And now I would like you to take notes together with me. So I'm going to write the pinyin and the characters for this vocabulary, and I would like you to write it down with me on your notebook so you have something to review with. Okay, so get ready. So T-shirt. When you write T-shirt, the pinyin, so we use just the letter T, okay? And then the pinyin for shoot, X, U, and with a fourth tone on the letter U, T-shirt. And the character, so just letter T, and then shoot, write it together. 点 树 点 撇 树 行树 树树 and then the last stroke 行 okay. T-shirt, T-shirt, which is means T-shirt, T-shirt. And then next one, we have 卫衣 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 hoodie, okay? 卫衣 is simpler to write, so for 卫 行树 go with one stroke, and then 树 行 that's 卫 and then 衣 点 行 撇 树 钩 撇 那 卫衣 hoodie, okay? 卫衣 Then next one we have 裤子 So 裤 with the fourth tone, 字 is toneless. There's no tone mark on it. Okay, 裤子 点 行撇 树 点点 点 行 竖撇 行 斜横 行 竖 and 字 is easy to write 行折 then one go then 行 okay 裤子 all kinds of pants and the next one is 裙子 all kinds of dresses okay 裙子 点 行撇 so the left part of 裙 is the same as 裤 as the one in the pants okay 行竖 行 行 撇 and then you write the mouth radical which is a square at the bottom that's 裙 and the 字 is the same character okay and the one thing one radical a new radical for this unit is this one this radical if you see this radical it has something to do with clothes okay it's the clothes radical and the next one we have 鞋子 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 together 行 竖行 竖 竖 行竖 行 then 竖 行 横竖. Okay, and then the same thing again. 鞋 and then 字. 鞋子 shoes. Okay, 鞋子 shoes. So these are the vocabulary we learned for today. Then let's do a review together. T 恤 卫衣 裙子 裤子 鞋子 Okay, so 他穿了什么 他穿了什么 What does he or she wear? And then you can say 他穿了 For example, this one 他穿了橙色的 T 恤 You can add the color to it 他穿了橙色的 T 恤蓝色的裤子和红色的鞋子 Okay, 他穿了什么他穿了橙色的 T 恤蓝色的裤子和红色的鞋子 Okay, so this is the sentences you are going to use to describe 他穿了 Okay, so that's our lesson for today. So to conclude, I would like to give you a homework which is ask you to describe 你穿了什么 你穿了什么 Okay, so we have done some practices for Chinese 2 students in class, and I would like you to do a review of this. 你穿了什么 Okay, 你穿了什么 So that's conclude our lesson for today, and this is Chinese for level 2 this week, and I'll see you next week in World Languages.
Kindergarten is great at Kansas City Public Schools.
I know they have really good teachers. I know this is a great school.
They teach them stuff that I thought my kids would never be able to know at the age of 5.
Since deciding to send our kiddos to a neighborhood school, we've become even more of a part of our community.
Now is the time to enroll your future kindergartner for the new school year. Visit enrollkc.org today.
I chose manual because it's challenging and fun, and it can help me with college.
I chose manual because I wanted to get a jump start in my career with culinary arts.
I chose manual to acquire skills I'd use in real life.
I chose manual because I want to be an ER doctor, and being an EMT is my first step.
Kickstart your future today at Manual Career and Technical Center. Manual is open for all 11th and 12th grade students in both Kansas and Missouri. Learn more today at enrollkc.org/manual or call 816-418-5200.
Welcome back to Homeroom. My name is Paul Turner, Social Studies Coordinator for Kansas City Public Schools. Today, we're here to talk about radical Reconstruction, the benefits of the South, what happened in the aftermath of the Reconstruction, and basically moving forward. Today, you're going to need a pen and paper. Let's get started. So, what do we know so far about radical Reconstruction? Well, what do we know so far about Reconstruction period? We know that Abraham Lincoln died in 1865. And basically, we know he was replaced by President Johnson. Remember, President Johnson didn't have too many friends. He was one of the original guys from the South that stayed with the Union. That's what made him basically a good vice president and helped keep the Union together. The questions that we're going to answer today. What was the legal and constitutional issues that arose basically after the war? What should be done with the free blacks in the South after the Civil War? And how and should the Southern states be reintegrated back into the Union? And what should be done with President Davis and other Confederate leaders after the Civil War? And who would lead this Reconstruction effort? So, we're going to get started with radical Reconstruction. 1867, the United States was, well, the South was broke up into 5 distinct districts. Basically, these districts were run by the military. Basically, they ran the Freedmen's Bureau. They ran all these organizations that basically promote black help in the South. So these organizations, they were run by generals. General Schofield ran basically 1. General Sickles ran 2. General Pope ran 3. And that's this large portion over here, which is talking about Alabama, Georgia, and basically Florida. General Orden ran 4. That's going to talk about today's Arkansas and Mississippi. and 5 was run by General Sheridan. Basically, that was today's Texas. So the radical Republicans, let's talk about Thaddeus Stevens was the leader of them. This is Thaddeus Stevens. Basically, he thought Lincoln was too lenient, basically, on the Confederacy. He thought they should pay a higher price. He thought 50% of them basically need to take a loyalty oath, basically, to the Union. So this basically was a huge deal. Because you remember Lincoln's plan, only 10% had to take this oath, right? Loyal to the Constitution of the United States. But the radical Republicans, they wanted 50% of the population to do so, right? So, when Johnson took over after Lincoln died in 1865, he ran with Lincoln's plan. You remember, he vetoed basically all these Republican-backed bills. As Republicans started sending these bills up for civil rights, basically for black suffrage and all this other stuff, he was vetoing these bills, right? So, he wasn't too popular. Remember, most of those states in the South, they hadn't came back into the Union yet. So, again, this whole process was basically just, drawn out process to get them back into the Union. He ended the Freedmen's Bureau, right? He told them no. He basically was not a friend of the black man. He was telling them that basically they're good. He said let the states handle it. Again, he was more of a states' rights guy compared to the radical Republicans. You remember, African Americans were loyal to the Republican Party close to 100 years after the Civil War. It went until basically 1965 where we started seeing that switch where African Americans moved to the Democratic Party, right? So, what should the radical Republicans do? Election was coming up. 1866 was a huge year. Huge year in American history, right? The next 2 years in American history were huge. From 1867 to 1869 were huge. So, 1866, Republicans had this huge landslide. So more come to basically to the House of Representatives, to the Senate. Guess what happened? So now, see all these bills are getting vetoed by Johnson. He had the highest veto percentage of any president so far, right? It was some 71%. Basically more than anybody put like Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln all put together. So, Republicans sought to expand their power. That's what they did. As all these new basic congressmen started coming in, they had a veto-proof power. So, guess what? If Johnson vetoes a bill, they could get it passed again because they had a veto-proof power. They basically, the South now wanted political power, right? Guess what? All these people in the South, now you have African Americans started coming about. You have, these white people just coming about because they took the oath, said, you know what? I'm taking oath to the United States. So they started wanting more power too. Then they ended up trying to remove the president from his position. We're going to talk about the impeachment of Andrew Johnson. So, let's get started. Constitutional issues that came up, right? The 13th Amendment. This ended slavery in 1865. So now, emancipation happened, right? After the Civil War. Remember in the South, as they started going through the South, those slave states basically started coming over. Now, we're talking about those border states, places like Missouri. They actually had to abide by the 13th Amendment that ended slavery, right? The 14th Amendment came in 1868. They gave black citizenships, right? So we talk about, Plessy versus Ferguson. That's going to happen in the future. But we're going to talk about all these other things that have happened. This is black gaining their citizenships basically under the Constitution with the 14th Amendment. This becomes huge moving forward in history. We're going to talk about gay rights. We're going to talk about all these other rights. We're going to talk about basically women when they gain the right to vote. This all happened because of the 14th Amendment, guys. The 14th Amendment is probably the most important amendment in the United States, right? Under the Constitution. The 15th Amendment. This gave black men the right to vote. This also, we lost some allies during this process too. It happens a lot, guys. Sometimes, one set gets like the right to vote or something like that. Other people can become upset because they're not getting the same rights, right? So let's talk about the unintended consequences, especially with the 15th Amendment. Unintended consequences, basically, understand that the abolitionist movement, this movement happens from all the way, the freedom of slavery happens from start like of the United States in the 1770s, right? This movement was basically trying to free blacks, right? And it was women that helped lead in this process. Women will help lead in this process, right? But black men gained the right to vote. Oh crap, stop.
What happened?
I started scrolling down.
Okay.
Okay. Alright.
Go back on that one?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to this one.
Alright, here we go. 3, 2.
So let's talk about the unintended consequences of the 15th Amendment. Understand that women were part of this abolitionist movement, right? They wanted blacks, you know, to be free. They wanted all this stuff. But that women won the right to vote, especially white women. It's true. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and all these other movements and these leaders, basically, they won the right to vote. African American men gained the right to vote in 1869, right? So this infuriated the movement. So a lot of your leading, basically, women's rights movers, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and all these other figures, they basically turned against this. They didn't want that to happen first. So they were friends with people like Frederick Douglass. And you saw this, basically, this clash. As Frederick Douglass said, yes, they are my friends. He says, my people come first. So you saw the split when it came to basically the black movement compared to the women's rights movement. So now former allies become enemies through this whole process. Now let's talk about basically about the impeachment of Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson, basically, again, nobody liked Andrew Johnson. People in the South thought he was a snake. People in the North didn't trust him. So now, where's his political base? He really didn't have one, right? So, the impeachment of Andrew Johnson. It started, basically, he fired Edwin Stanton. When he fired Edwin Stanton was basically, he was the Secretary of War. The Secretary of War was basically telling Congress that this guy can't be trusted. He's basically a spy for the Congress, right? For the radical Republicans. He was a spy for the radical Republicans. So understand that Andrew Johnson didn't trust him. So he fired him from the cabinet. So once he did that, that triggered basically a congressional review, congressional basically investigation. So once that happened, the radical Republicans knew that they had blood in the water. All this other good stuff that happened basically during the Johnson years. When we talk about the end of French hopes in Mexico, the review of the Grand Army in 1865, the purchase of basically Alaska from Russia in 1867, the Nebraska being admitted to basically the Union in 1867, the Reconstruction period, the amendments getting passed, the Civil War amendments, and the Great Eastern Atlantic Cable in 1865, that all happened during his administration. So all the good that we talked about, that he may have done while he was the president, basically went out the window. So Congress ended up impeaching him, right? The House of Representatives, they said, you know what, we're going to send him to trial. The Senate, led by 7 Republicans, decided not to convict him. Those 7 Republicans never ran for office again. Their political career was over. The party was done with them, right? So those guys were done. But he was still the president for the next few years, right? He was a weak president. Congress basically had a veto-proof margins so they could go around him. They didn't need a president during this time. He was a weak president. He was wounded. So we know about Reconstruction. We know what happened with Lincoln. We know what happened with Johnson. We know what happened with the radical Republicans getting Civil War amendments passed. We talked about Thaddeus Stevens, right? So let's talk about the lasting impact of Reconstruction. Let's talk about the short-term gains for African Americans. Remember, we had our first African American congressman, right? And this was huge. We basically taught lots of African Americans, over 200,000 African Americans, how to read and how to write. So the short-term gains are huge, right? But the long-term impact basically was one of poverty. We're going to talk about the sharecropping system, correct? The sharecropping system, remember we talked about that a week and a half ago. The sharecropping system, basically, people were bonded to the land. So the lasting impact becomes over 100 years. So it's a reason we're going to talk about the Civil Rights Amendment in the 1960s. Because the sharecropping system basically left people bonded to the land. So it's much like slavery, but a little bit different, correct? So, let's answer some questions, right? What was the legal and constitutional issues that arose after the war? We're going to talk about basically black male suffrage, right? African Americans gained the right to vote. Great issue, right? Then we're going to talk about the women's rights issue. White women didn't get the right to vote till 1920, correct? Then, did the lives of free blacks improve during Reconstruction? For the short term, yes, right? The short term, they did improve, correct? But on a long-term period, we still had to basically have the civil rights movement close to 100 years down the road. What happened to the old Confederate members after the Civil War? So with the 14th Amendment, remember that one gave African Americans the right to citizenship, right? But the 14th Amendment also stripped away the Confederacy's basically right to vote. So if you were like, Jefferson Davis, he lost his right to vote. He lost his right to be basically a citizen of the United States, right? To participate in open elections. So that's what happened to the old Confederacy, right? So they actually lost their rights as men to be a part of the United States. Compare the two plans. Which one was more effective? Compare Lincoln's plan compared to Congress' plan, the Radical Republican plan, right? Which one would you think is more effective? Personally, I like the aggressiveness of the Radical Republican plan. They basically wanted to punish the South, which they ended up doing. But in the long term, it ended up hurting them, right? Because those state legislatures, as they kept coming back above, they started denying African Americans the right to vote. They started denying African Americans the right for employment. So then we talked about the Jim Crow system that started coming back because of that, right? So the Radical Republican plan was great for the short time. For long-term periods, I can understand what Lincoln was thinking. He wanted to keep that union together. So, we talked about radical reconstruction. We talked about what happened to the former Confederates after the war. We talked about the aftermath of Reconstruction. Now, this is what I want you to do. This is what you're going to do, right? You're going to look at the legacy of Reconstruction. Write one paragraph over some things that left basically over from American society over Reconstruction. I want you to think about some of those things. I want you to think about some of the racist attitudes that start coming forward because the legacy of Reconstruction. I'm Paul Turner, Social Studies Coordinator. Today we talked about Radical Reconstruction. We talked about basically how it wrapped up. We talked about the long-term impact of Radical Reconstruction. Now, I want you to think about that as we go forward and how that affects American society. Talk to you guys next week.
The desire to create lives within each of us. From Grammy-winning producers and musicians, to NBA stars, to Navy admirals and Medal of Honor recipients, to internationally renowned artists, and beloved local muralists, Paseo graduates have been creating their own success, their own history, their own legacy since 1926. Now it's your time. Create your future at Paseo Academy of Fine and Performing Arts. Learn more at enrollkc.org/Paseo.